Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wim Lu. This is the Reaction Podcast presented by Betway for all your sports gambling needs. Please hit the QR code below and go with friends of the program, Betway. Raptors lose tonight, 122 to 107. Raptors, once again, played tough enough. They were in the game to start the fourth quarter, but unfortunately, the Raptors have really made a habit of, not being able to close out quarters. In this case, Raptors didn't have the lead like in previous games going into the fourth, and Sacramento really, really just pulled away. Toronto looked like they ran out of gas in a lot of moments. A lot of mental mistakes started cropping up. And also, full credit to the Kings. They played really, really well as they, came away with this 122 to 107 win. We are actually out in LA right now, preparing to cover the Raptors playing in the back-to-back here in LA coming up this weekend. First with I think the Lakers are first and then the Clippers. I might have that reversed, but that's obviously why we're in a different setting here. But yeah, Raptors, I think we're starting to see a bit of a pattern, and I think that it's good to just observe a couple of these things because all of a sudden, when you see these things come up, you have things that you can start to try to work on. And for this young Raptors team, especially with how banged up they are, and the bad news is that it gets even worse. Jacoby Walter, who had missed a lot of training camp due to a right shoulder injury, had been playing for the last 2 weeks. He's been fine. He's been good. Today, he runs into a moving screen from Domantas Sabonis, and unfortunately, he had to leave the game with a shoulder injury as well. Same right shoulder, so that is going to require more assessments. Although that's just really unlucky. And honestly, there are probably just going to be instances where he's just going to have to just continue to sort of build up that strength in that shoulder. You just don't want to see it as something he keeps injuring. Like, it reminds me a little bit of like DeLon Wright back in the day when he was a rookie. His career got off to a slow start because he kept injuring his shoulder. But yeah, you have that. You have Jonathan Mobile, who left the game with a hip pointer, and he didn't return. I thought Mobile played a really good game. He was really energetic. But towards the fourth quarter there, you saw him sort of slow down a little bit. And I guess I didn't necessarily see the specific play. Like the Walter one was pretty obvious. He ran around a screen with Sabonis, a bit of a moving screen for Sabonis, whatever. Like, obviously, Raptors have now lost 2 players due to shoulder injuries this season, both, against the Lithuanian Giants. One was Sabonis today, the other time with JV on RJ Barrett back in preseason. So, whatever, that's just a level of physicality that happens. But Mobile, I actually didn't even see the specific play where he injured himself. Hopefully he's not out, because as of right now, Raptors got 9 players available. I mean, even Garrett Temple, he had back spasms. He wasn't available to play. Now, obviously, whatever, Garrett probably wasn't going to play regardless. But yeah, this team is the walking wounded right now. And so you have to sort of obviously consider all the results through that lens. I think the other thing too is just for the young team, there are things to consider. Like, number one, there is a bit of a surprise factor, I suppose, when you have all these injuries and you're playing very differently. Teams obviously were coming into the season. Obviously, if you're coming against the Raptors, you're going to plan for Scotty. You're going to game plan for IQ, and then you probably look at RJ. Especially now, teams are getting a better sense of okay, obviously RJ is going to lead a lot of their offense. What are the things that we can do to stop against RJ Barrett? What's been successful? And so essentially, teams build up a book in terms of how they're going to guard you. And then the other thing is, there's also Gradey Dick, who's been off to this huge tear. I feel like coming into the season, he probably wasn't on the scouting report in a way other than he's a shooter, but all of a sudden he's moving, he's cutting, he's doing all the things that we've seen that's really excited us to start the year. So all of a sudden now you're seeing Grady get into the scouting report more and more. And I think what's interesting is yes, obviously these guys are going to slow down a little bit. Like RJ is going to slow down. He's going to see double teams. I feel like he even damn near saw triple teams. Anytime he came off a high screen, there was just obviously his defender trying to chase up from behind. There's Sabonis usually trying to plug up the lane as a 7-footer, and then someone pinching off the wings too. Lots of pressure on RJ Barrett as he comes off of these pick and rolls now. How is he going to adapt to that? We saw even against the Nuggets, we saw him getting blitzed and double teamed, right? How is he going to adapt to that? Because obviously coming into the first couple of games, you weren't seeing that kind of coverage against them. But when you start balling out, all of a sudden teams start countering against you. how does he sort of play around that, and sort of how does he take the reps and experience of seeing all those extra, defenders? How is he going to make the right reads? How is he going to find the right balance in this game and still obviously find ways to be involved scoring wise? Because this team just doesn't have a lot of excess scoring, especially given the fact that they're down to 9 bodies today. Um, and then with Gradey ends up in this game is an interesting one because he actually came out, it looked like it was going to be another one of those Gradey Dick games that we've seen all season, right? Where first play, he catches, rips, goes a baseline, and throws down a two-handed dunk. And it's like, that's amazing. And like a couple plays later, he comes off a pick and roll and he throws up a floater from like the elbow, like a 15, 17-foot floater, and he swishes that. And it's like, damn, that's really, really impressive to shoot that kind of a one-handed shot. But obviously we know he has that shooting touch. And then unfortunately, he started picking up fouls. And, that's something with Gradey where, especially now that you're starting to see him playing in a starting role, playing in these big moments, like he's going to have to defend. And there's been moments where he's been good defensively, right? Like I thought that against Denver, he was very disruptive defensively and was able to play some passing lanes. We've seen him take a charge here or there. We've even seen him just being vertical. Even the last game against Sacramento, I thought Gradey was able to play decent enough defensively. This game, though, I felt like Sacramento, first off, like they had a lot of, they just always offer a lot of on-ball pressure, like in terms of who can attack off the dribble, right? De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, even Kevin Huerter, I thought did a really good job attacking Gradey to start the game. That's actually how Gradey got into a couple of his first fouls was, failing to guard against Kevin Huerter, who, similar to Gradey, put it on the deck a couple times and attacked the closeouts. And also when he gets into the paint, then you're starting to catch up and trying to, play from behind and you're in the fouling, whatever. Like these guys are going to be attacking him. And, that's where he's got to sort of learn how to continue to grow defensively. Unfortunately, Gradey picked up his third foul early in the second quarter. And for a moment, I thought it was going to be a similar moment to the last game against Sacramento, where Darko saw that Jonathan Mobile picked up 3 fouls early in the second quarter. He chose to sort of keep him in the game, even though he made a substitution right at that moment. He didn't substitute. That led to, a situation where, he ended up staying in the game and then picked up his 4th foul right afterwards. That's something where I feel like for Darko was, I I wouldn't say it's a learning moment, because just in the sense that, like, who knows? Maybe it's just like a brain fart or whatever. But Mobile ended up picking up 4 fouls, and that took him out of the game entirely because he didn't really know how to come back in and play with 4 fouls. I think he ended up falling out of that game in the second half as well. But it just kind of took him out. Luckily, the Raptors were able to hold on against Sacramento the last time in OT. This time, Gradey picks up the 3rd foul, and then once again, he's left in the game. But then the next play down, Gradey just like completely lets Kevin Huerter walk by him going to the basket, and then lets Kevin Huerter get open for 3. And you can see a drop off of an intensity. And all of a sudden, Darko decided to take Gradey out the game. And I don't think he really got back in until like end of the second quarter, like just kind of one, offense, defense type of possessions. But basically, like, took him out with 3 fouls. Then early in the third quarter, there was a play where somebody got beat on the ball and Gradey tried to slide over to take a charge, just kind of playing normal help defense against DeMar. Unfortunately, DeMar got there first. And so Gradey picked up his 4th foul. Then he came out the game once again. And at that point, it was just like every time Gradey came back in, first off, like the regular substitution pattern, the regular, like his aggressiveness just wasn't able to be established. He just didn't, he started again the first couple of minutes, he was good, but he just kept having to come in and out of the game. This is the lowest minutes he's played this season. And yeah, I think him learning to play with the foul trouble is going to be a real thing, because like, especially for a guy who's going to potentially be in your starting lineup long term, and obviously it's based on what Grady's shown this season, we clearly want to see him in the starting lineup long term. These are things that a young team's going to have to grow and adapt to, right? And how can Gradey, despite foul trouble, despite teams going after him, which is going to continue to be a thing, how is he going to be able to handle that? It can't just be like backing off. But at the same time, it can't be being so aggressive and you're giving up fouls, right? And that's the maturity and the experience that both for Gradey and maybe even for the rest of the team, in terms of like, maybe, okay, if you see Gradey in foul trouble, maybe we switch the zone for a couple possessions and we hide him. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, or we switch him onto a weaker defender or a weaker attacker. In this case, for Sacramento, they have a lot of on-ball creators, so it wasn't so easy to do that. But like, those are the small adjustments that I would love to see him make, and also Darko make, and just the rest of the team make around Gradey. But that's the main reason why, he just wasn't really in the flow. And when he came back in the fourth quarter and it was like, okay, you got 4 fouls, but you start the fourth quarter, can you get Gradey? He sat on the bench for a long time. Maybe now he can really start to contribute. But at that point, he was out of rhythm, and he got some 2 wide open corner threes. He couldn't get those to drop. He went 0 for 5 from 3 today, only played 24 minutes, 3 of 10 from the field for Gradey Dick. I think that, again, this is just a young learning, teaching moment. Like, yeah, it sucks to lose, and it's obviously, like, these are starting to wear on them. I know we talk tank. We see the flag, Raptors jerseys, photo edits on Twitter nonstop ad nauseum. But also at the same time, like, if you actually go listen to a post game interview after these losses, these guys are gutted, right? It's gutting to, like, play hard each night and then to have the rug pulled out under you. They're gutted, and that's why I do want them once in a while when they're in the opportunity. This game, not necessarily. It's not like they held a double-digit lead and blew it like they did against Denver, for example, twice. But when you have some of those chances to close it out, just to, like, give them a little bit of positive affirmation, because these guys are working hard. You want to see some results for them. But at the same time, even in these losses, there's a lot to take away from. I think for Gradey, like, it's just knowing how to find that right balance to play defensively, not dropping off in aggression entirely. But also, if you have 3 fouls early in the second quarter, you probably just got to let DeMar go to the basket, or at least rely on someone helping behind you. If that's your extra rotation and you decide to slide in for a charge, you better know that you're going to get that charge. Otherwise, you are probably coming out the game. So these small things, and, like, that's normal. We see lots of players struggle to play with that. There's some guys who can, like Kyle Lowry, for example. I always bring him up as an example, but, like, he would always have moments where there were, like, 2 fouls early on in the first quarter, and he would look at the coach and say, like, no, I got this. I'm good. And they would find a way to work it through, and I think that that's obviously the benefit of being, a longtime veteran by the time he came to the Raptors towards the end of his career, especially. And then also like, just being a really, really smart, intuitive player who understands what he can get away with. And I think for Grady, yeah, those are learning moments. I think for RJ, it's a big learning moment right now in 2 fronts. Number one, how to handle all this extra defensive attention, because the Kings really swarmed him. Not quite hard trapping the way Denver was, with Jokic coming out sometimes above the 3-point line to sort of really, really deter RJ. But, like, they sent a lot of bodies stacking the lane. So yes, they allowed RJ to use the screen, versus Denver was basically saying, like, if you use the screen, we're going to put 2 guys on you above the 3-point arc, and you're going to give it up right there. You're not even going to get inside the arc. Against Sacramento, it's different because they don't want Sabonis coming out above the arc that often. He does once in a while, but realistically, he's probably closer to, like, keep him at home. They really need him to rebound as well. So, they don't necessarily like to bring him out. But okay, fine. You can use the screen from Jakob, but as soon as you turn downhill, we're gonna have the help defender off the big man coming towards you to stop you, and then you also have help coming off the wings. Now, there's reads you can make off of those, because you can sort of, like, make a quick pass to the corner, or if there's help coming from the wing, the person on the wing can make a back cut. And, like, those things can give RJ a little bit more options. RJ is clearly a willing passer. Once again, he's been able to sort of create offense here. I don't want to say he wasn't. In fact, he started this game excellently and got to the basket quite a bit. But, like, as the game went on, especially in the fourth quarter, you see the extra adjustments and the attention. That's where, he's got to continue to sort of beat and have other counters. Because I think the plan A for RJ these days is working great. He's coming off these screens. He's getting into the space. Even the times where Sacramento put 2 defenders on him when they were playing a little bit, like, less intense as compared to, like, the fourth quarter, for example, he was still, like, splitting defenders and getting to the hole. And he was finishing with both hands. All that stuff was good. Getting on transition once in a while, that was nice. But this is the thing, like, if the Raptors are going to be able to sort of, like, eventually down the line look at who's going to be our fourth quarter scorer, who's going to execute for us, who's going to be a player too who's, like, not only your fourth quarter scorer, but when teams adjust, because obviously teams play totally differently intensity wise and also tactics wise in the fourth quarter compared to the first half. Who's the player that has the depth in their game to be able to adjust to different scenarios? So even if they, you start the game, they only throw you fastballs and you're you're cranking home runs. By the second, third time you're coming up to bat, they're probably throwing you changeups and curveballs. Do you still have the, the wherewithal to sort of adjust and sort of be effective? And I think that's the thing for the Raptors. That's an open question for me this season, is who's going to be the Raptors' fourth quarter scorers. Because one of the reasons you see the Raptors fall apart and lose so many leads, and again today, like, they had a lead in the third quarter, but, like, realistically, it wasn't like anything like insurmountable. Like, they were up like 8 to 9 points. whatever. And you can see that flipped like with 2 or 3 bad possessions, which the Raptors did also do by committing some dumb turnovers. Darko was very annoyed when he called the timeout after RJ threw a soft pass that got picked up by Sabonis, took it the other way for a dunk. And the next play down, Jamison Battle tried to go baseline, throw a cross-court pass, jump pass, which DeMar DeRozan actually picked off, helping off the corner shooter. And that led to a transition basket by the Kings going the other way. You saw Darko super pissed off coming in and calling that timeout. He knows how important it is for the Raptors to sort of take care of the ball. They've been stressing it so much. Today, they actually did a good job of it, 11 turnovers, but even just 11 turnovers, which is a really good game for the Raptors, 2 turnovers like that can flip the momentum entirely. The Raptors went from pushing and building a lead in the third quarter to immediately collapsing, and they never got control of the game ever again going into the fourth quarter when it was close to tied. So those things are important, but my other thing is who is going to be your fourth quarter closer. And honestly, if you guys have answers to that, I would love for you to drop them in the chat here. Also, a big reminder, if you are watching, I know this is late night, I know the Raptors lost, so we don't have as big of an audience. I think it's actually even more important right now, if you're watching, to just hit the like on the stream. Most importantly for us, because the more likes this video gets, the more YouTube knows to sort of push it. And I know for a lot of fans back home, obviously I'm on Pacific time right now in LA, but back home right now in Toronto, it's like 12:30, almost 12:45. Like a lot of people are just going to wake up in the morning and watch it. Ideally, they're subscribed, which you should do as well. But if they're not subscribed, they're going to have to rely on the algorithm to sort of push the content towards them. So that's where, if you like the stream right now, it would help a lot. But also, if you're in the stream, please drop your questions, because producer Alex Wong is in the next room beside me in this Airbnb looking for questions to answer. So obviously I'll get to those after the break. But yeah, who is going to be that fourth quarter scorer? Because that's part of the reason why the Raptors don't hold leads. You see the offense sort of break apart, right? In the last game against Denver, for example, RJ started getting blitzed a lot. So, okay, he wasn't really that effective. Then Gradey started being pressured to take it off the dribble a couple times and create against stronger defenders who are also pressing up higher on him, and he had to create off the dribble, and he dribbled off his foot a couple of times. Like all of a sudden your offense dries up. Meanwhile, the other way, teams know exactly, well, especially good teams know exactly where they're going to, right? And like obviously this is like the benefit of having really good players, but also like veteran players, because like you look at Sacramento, they're like, okay, we know we always have the dribble handoff stuff with Sabonis, at any time that we want. But we also have DeMar DeRozan posting up on the block, and he knocked down like 3 turnaround jumpers in the same spot and drew a foul as well. There's that one source of offense. Or against Denver, like down the stretch, they were just posting Jokic over and over and over again until he literally broke through and fouled Jakob Poeltl out, and all of a sudden, then the Raptors had nothing, right? Even in the Lakers game, they obviously they have AD, they have LeBron. Those guys, they obviously know how to execute. Raptors are a long way, from that. So, I'm not trying to be unrealistic and saying the Raptors should, be able to counter LeBron. But I think that what you need to see is like who is going to be that fourth quarter answer for the Raptors. Because like, I think there's a number of candidates, again, especially when everyone's healthy. Scotty's got a long history of being, productive in the fourth quarter. I would have to say, though, it's not like clear out for Scotty and then he gets you a bucket every time. It's not like the way that they would call an ISO for DeMar, they call an ISO for Jokic. Obviously, Scotty's effectiveness in the fourth quarter, a lot of that is, when he's chasing and trying to, cut into a deficit. I feel like a lot of times he's coming from behind for those. And also there's a lot of other sort of tic-tac plays that he's meant to make into. They're not necessarily like isolation, give the ball, clear out, like you would with Kawhi back in the day either, right? RJ, I think, can be a candidate for this, but at the same time, we know that the outside shooting can come and go with him. And also he's primarily going to the rim. And if he's going to the rim, sometimes he's going to get the call, sometimes he's not going to get the call. Obviously, teams can do what they did the last couple of games, which is blitz him or stack 2-3 defenders on him on his drive. That's also going to be tough. Gradey can be an option, but at the same time, like if teams really, really, he's just not a guy who's going to create the offense all by himself. Like in the first quarter, he can curl, he can cut, they can call elbow, they can call all sorts of stuff for Gradey. And, let's be honest, the intensity in the first 3 quarters is totally different from the fourth. By the time the fourth quarter comes around, they've seen elbow 4 or 5 times. They've already been burnt by it. All of a sudden, teams start playing that differently. Does he have the toughness and physicality to play through that? Right now, I don't think so, right? So these are all things that, like, and I guess quickly is also quickly. But, like, my point is, this is a question I would love to see answer to some degree. I'm not saying that I need the Raptors to, like, have a clear-cut closer by the end of the season or midway through the season or anything like that. But it is a question I want to see with this young group, who's actually going to emerge as that guy. Aside from that, though, I think the Raptors supporting players continue to play good roles for this team. Davion Mitchell, I got to give him a huge shout out. He's been excellent in both games against Sacramento. He was really, really important today. Hit 20 points for the first time with the Raptors. Went 8 of 11 from the field. I thought defensively, in terms of the Raptors wanting to improve on defense, Davion's the one guy though that's like clearly clear cut, a really, really positive defender in this whole group. To some degree, like I feel like Jamal Shed can do that. I feel like Jamal, though, I know we had conversations to start the year, especially in preseason. Jamal, I thought, outplayed Davion in preseason. But as the season has actually started, the regular season has actually started, I think Davion's experience and his just overall awareness is better right now. Like you see like 2 or 3 possessions each game where Jamal's trying to overplay a little bit, and that's his thing. He likes to overwhelm, overplay. The thing is like that might work in college, but like in the pros, certain guys you can't do that with, right? Like it's one thing to overplay like an older guard like Mike Conley, or it's like you can overplay like a slower guard, or you can like overplay a sloppier guard or whatever. Hard to overplay, De'Aaron Fox, because you try to pressure him like that hard. He either blows right by you or he gives it up to Sabonis. Then he cuts backdoor really quickly. The recovery there, like you just got to know, you got to pick your spots. You can't apply that sort of same blanket pressure on everybody. Davion, though, I thought has just consistently shown that he can really guard at a high level. He really turns guys over a lot. He's come up with some good defensive sequences as well. That was one thing that Darko wanted to see from him to start this season. He's shown more of that. And then offensively, I actually liked when he really went quick with the ball. You saw a lot of possessions in the balance of this game, probably between the second and third quarter, where Davion was able to really push the pace and take quick crossovers and just take guys to the rack. And he's not the biggest guy. Like even I'm taller than Davion Mitchell. Like I've stood beside him. He's like probably 6'1". Like on the smaller side. I think Jamal might actually be a little taller than him, like just by a little tiny bit. But I think for Davion, he's got to trust that he's got a good, crossover. He's quick. And I don't think teams are anticipating him attacking. They're obviously very focused on Gradey and RJ right now. Like that's, again, the benefit of the scouting report is like when they focus on other guys, all of a sudden other guys get more open. I think Davion's got these chances to sort of like push the break. And I thought today he actually picked them really, really well. These are situations where it's like semi-fast break and it's just up to the point guard to say like, I'm going to push it to a different level. And yeah, he's got the quick crossover. He can finish with the left. He can finish with the right. Nothing, fancy. They're pretty straightforward finishes, generally speaking. He's mostly using the cross plus the speed, the burst to sort of get there. Even Jamal, for example, like he will use a cross and then get into the lane and throw like a push shot. He'll change his angles a little bit. You got an and one today with that. That's nice. But I think seeing more offense and just Davion, forcing a little bit more of his offense is really big. I think right now, as it stands, if IQ ever comes back from this injury, which again, he was listed as doubtful, but he was out. Davion to me is like really exciting me as like a backup point guard option. Like I think that this is exactly what you want to see from that. And I think defensively, especially if he's able to showcase what he's continued to show here with a little bit more offense, all of a sudden you play 2 point guard lineups, your pace can go up. We've seen a lot of that over the years with the Raptors. And defensively, it could work because Davion is a really good defender. So I want to give Davion a huge shout out. Ochai, I thought he knocked down 2 threes in the third quarter. I don't know why I call him Ochai, like he's Irish, but Ochai, had a nice stretch there in the second quarter or third quarter where he knocked down 2 threes. Unfortunately, he went 0 for 5 in the other sequences from 3, but he took it to the rack a couple of times. He just continues to play his game well. We saw one play where he also like pushed the break and finished all the way going the other way again through semi-transition where he was able to finish by pushing his pace rather than just being a leak out option. That was impressive to me. I thought Ochai's defense was good too. Unfortunately, a lot of the offense down the stretch, they needed a little bit more from him, just from anybody else because they were really swarming RJ and Gradey was cold. And, I don't think Ochai had the goods. I don't really think Davion had the goods outside of a lucky 3 as well. Honestly, the Raptors bench tonight played pretty decently. I thought Chris really was unsung hero for a lot of this one. He probably could have gotten a bigger chance to play more in the fourth quarter for me. 17 points, 4 rebounds for Chris, 7 of 11 from the field. His offense is just a lifeline for the bench. Like you don't usually see bigs who are sort of like the leading scorer off the bench, and probably honestly, like if this team ever gets healthy, because again they were down to 9 healthy bodies today after this game, but if they ever do get healthy, I don't think Chris will obviously be as high up in terms of the options on offense. But at the same time, like he was able to knock down his threes today. He knocked down 3 threes in the first half. That was huge. He took a charge. That was huge. Finished a couple plays in transition. defensively, whatever. He gets crossed up sometimes. I don't think he's strong on the perimeter. And there's a couple plays where they need him to switch and communicate those. And it feels like whether it was either him or his teammate who didn't really communicate those switches well. But in general, Chris has done a really good job in providing a lot of offense for that second unit. I thought actually Jamison Battle, man, I think Jamison clearly has some skills. Like obviously he has a good 3-point shot. Fortunately, he could have knocked those down in the first half, but that doesn't really what bothers me. What bothered me is just like he's got to like really, really improve on defense. There's just like he played 14 minutes, got 4 fouls. That's not the first time this season that's happened where he's played less than 20 minutes and been in like not foul trouble in the sense that because I'm not worried if he fouls out, but he's committing so many fouls. Like the Raptors as a whole, defensively, amongst their many issues, but they're probably their biggest, most inconsequential issue defensively right now is how much they foul. And you have a guy in 14 minutes who's committing 4 fouls. Like DeMar's posting you up, and he's hitting the turnaround jumper, and you're stepping too close, you're fouling him. Or like a guy shooting a pull-up 3, and you're stepping under his foot, and you're fouling for a 3-point shooter. Or first play in the game, you come in and you immediately foul. Like all these things, it's just got to be cut out. Obviously, there's good things that he does. There's a shooting element that he does. But whether that's him like adapting to the speed of the game and trying to read it, whether that's him like not necessarily being the quickest player. We know he's not like a like strong athlete or anything like that. But at the same time, like a lot of these things can be cut out. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's I'm not going to accept an excuse for him because I know he has enough offensively to be on the floor, but defensively there's a lot that he can get improved on, and a lot of these are just like needless fouls that he commits to. Like, you know, like I think I noticed the second game of the season when the Raptors played the third game when they played Philadelphia and they won. But in that game, like even Eric Gordon crossed him up, and I was like, "That's Eric Gordon, man. This is 2024 with Eric Gordon. I seen that man play with the New Orleans Hornets. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's so like that shouldn't happen. So I think that there's more for Jamison to work on defensively. He gets caught flat-footed. He's just not reading in the same way that you want the rest of the guys to read in. But in the second half, he actually played really well, and you know that was actually really joy. It was a real pleasure watching him in the second half knock down some threes and even make a couple passes, you know, off the move. You know, once he hit a 3, all of a sudden teams are closing out on him. Then he was getting into the middle lane, finding Jakob for dump offs, and Jakob was finishing those little jump hooks. So that was good. And then even Mobo, I thought actually played a really good game. In general, like his energy was really, really notable. 18 minutes off the bench, 5 points, 5 rebounds, 4 offensive, 2 assists, a steal. I just thought he was contesting everything in terms of like loose balls, shots, passes. Like he was just there all the time. And yeah, like I think there's some moments where he can finish a little bit better. Like one time he rolled to the basket and he saw Alex Len was there and he just kind of like stopped and he was like, and then he kind of held the ball a little bit. He got stuck. Very similar to the Nuggets game, for example, where we got the rebound, but then he was stuck offensively. I think that like that's clearly something from the work on is like just a little bit of a post game, or even not a post game, but just like more finishing finesse, a little bit more creativity. You know what I mean? Like right now, he just again, I've highlighted this a couple times. Offensively, he doesn't seem like he has a great plan when he starts to play in the pick and roll, and he's just around the basket and he's trying to finish. He can obviously dunk it, but outside of that, like you know, like what's your plan to finish other than going quick and dunking? There's just got to be like, you know, if he picked up Jakob's, you know, jump hook or floater, or whatever, the push shot, that would be phenomenal, right? In terms of just like what he can add to his game. But defensively, though, the energy plays, the activity plays, and again, it's just really, really unfortunate that he picked up a hit pointer in the midst of all of that. So, look, ultimately, I think you can't be discouraged by losses, even if the loss is not as exciting as the previous ones. I know we've been really treated to a lot of exciting games. Raptors this time, it was pretty clear that they were running out of gas in the fourth quarter and ended up losing by a significant margin. But at the same time, like the reason you watch these losses is because you want to track the progress of these players, see where they can continue to get better as a group, and like just see them continue to try to push and grow as a team. And for me, like especially when the team is bad and like not winning, that's when I think they need their support the most. And I'm not saying as an obligation you got to stay up till 11 a.m. to or 10 a.m. to watch some of this stuff, or 12 a.m. to watch some of this stuff. But at the same time, it is worth checking in on for these guys because these are young guys who we can feel invested in. And so I want to get to your questions, but first I want to get to a message from our beloved sponsors. This NBA season marks the Raptors' 30th anniversary, and as the team's official beer partner since day one, Coors Light is celebrating by releasing 3 limited edition cans for Raptors Nation. Each is designed to represent an iconic decade of Coors Light and Raptors history, allowing fans of the North to unlock an era in every can. 30 years in the making, one can for every era. Now, for a limited time only, Canadians can purchase Coors Light Raptors 30th anniversary cans at select LCBO stores and participating bars and restaurants across the GTA, including select locations at Scotiabank Arena.
Check out EraInEveryCan.com. That's ERA in everycan.com to learn more about Coors Light and the Raptors and their long-standing history and the limited edition cans. Plus, fans can enter for a chance to win exclusive Coors Light Raptors prizes, including exclusive team merch designed by Coors Light through their partnership with Mitchell and Ness. So make sure you check out EraInEveryCan.com for more details.
Yeah. Also, hi Jerome. Hi producer Jerome. How was dinner with your friends?
It was really nice. We had sugarfish sushi. It was delicious.
Wow.
Yeah, but on to some questions.
Yeah, it was also good to have a couple DoorDash orders here at the house too. But yeah, this is it's been fun. Honestly, it's been fun being out in LA. We took in, honestly, we didn't have as many interviews scheduled today, so we were able to hit up some of the nice spots in LA. If you have LA recommendations, food, travel, whatever, just please jot those in the chat as well. But we want to get to the Q&A segment presented by Tangerine, and I wanted to let you know that Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors, foundational partner of WNBA Canada and NBA Canada. And of course, they're not just fans of basketball, they're fans of basketball. They are fans of fans who have their own nickname for each player in the starting five, or fans who stand 5 inches from the TV all game, or fans who can recreate every player's layup package while sitting on their couch. And if you're hearing this, there's no down to your commitment. Let's be honest. Raptors just lost by 15. They ran out of gas. They ran out of bodies, and it's like pretty late on the East Coast. And at the same time, you're still here, and that's exactly who Tangerine wants to celebrate. They want to celebrate fans like you. This is the Raptors' 30th anniversary, and they want to turn their attention from the court to the stands and highlight fans like yourself, because this is how we fan. To learn more, visit tangerine.ca/basketball. Producer Alex, hit me with the first question. This comes from Mel. When will this team learn how to close a game? Yeah, I think, look, that's probably the hardest thing for the young team. That maturity to not be overexcited when they're up and playing with the lead, not get nervous when they're up or down playing in a close game. They need, obviously, somebody to step up and emerge as like the closing guy. Who's going to be the guy who really closes? Sacramento, for example, they got really good when A, they got Sabonis in, but B, they really established Fox as like, okay, he's going to be that kind of closing guy, right? The level where he can win like a clutch player of the year type of award. Like, somebody's got to emerge for sure. And more than importantly than anything else, closing games is also about awareness defensively. And I think that that's where the Raptors right now are probably batting 0-4, but that's not surprising for a lot of young teams. A lot of young teams get the energy, they got the excitement, they catch teams by surprise, they're up, but closing games is the hardest part. And we will see. Honestly, it took Kyle and DeMar a long time to figure that portion out. It took, all these old teams, like I felt like the Chris Bosh era teams, like they really always struggled to close games. So they didn't have that go-to scorer, and their defense was a little suspect. I think for the Raptors right now, they have a lot of good young pieces, but they need to figure out how to do that as a group. And that's why these close games, or this one wasn't even that close, but these games where you're playing meaningful fourth quarter minutes are huge for development. So thanks for your question, Mel. And it is the number one question on my mind as well. But let's get to the next one. Alice, what we got, man? Clayton, once again, Clayton asks a question. IQ, best get in there this weekend. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's been rather curious. I mean, when IQ suffered the injury, and we all remember it, this was a home opener. Darius Garland jumped on an up fake or something and landed on IQ as IQ tried to go up and draw the foul and go up for the shot. IQ just didn't really look the same. He played a little bit longer in that game, and he left it. Since then, he hasn't played. He didn't play in the second half of that game as well. And it's just such a shame. I mean, like, IQ obviously had missed some time going into training camp with like the hand injury or whatever. Now it's like the pelvic injury. And Darko was asked about it probably last week. And he did say that there are some games where sometimes where he just feels completely fine. And sometimes he wakes up and it's just like, it's really, really bothering him. And so I know that people are already pushing this tank thing. I mean, look, you could push tank all year. Then what's the point of watching any of this, right? I don't think they're tanking. I think they're really trying to find a way to best manage this injury. Hopefully, it's nothing recurring. Because again, you don't just want to see like Jacoby, for example. They were very careful with Jacoby, but he came back and all of a sudden he hurts the shoulder in the same way. So like things like that, I think with IQ, yeah, it's hard to play if you got like a bad back / bad hip. So ideally, you like to see him back on the lineup. At the same time, even if he gets back on the lineup, I don't think this fixes all that much, other than just like we get to see him sort of running more offense. The Raptors will get quite small if they introduce IQ into the rotation, which, look, that's nothing really to be that concerned about, except for the fact that the Lakers are huge and the Clippers have a lot of really strong defenders. It's not the most ideal thing to do, but at the same time, like, I would love to see IQ come back in there, and I would understand if he was a little rusty, considering he's been banged up twice now coming into the season. But yeah, it's been a tricky one, and the Raptors have been absolutely snake bitten with injuries, and it's just heartbreaking, really, because not that, again, it's not necessarily because we're lamenting the results. It's the fact that we don't get to see this group play together. We've already seen exciting things from RJ, from IQ, or from RJ, from Gradey to Ochai. Jakob's really stepped up. Davion's been playing a lot better recently, but like, where are the other guys? Like this season was about Scotty. We haven't seen him, and we're not going to see him for another 2 weeks. IQ is about him. He signed a big deal in the offseason. We haven't really seen him play at all with this group, right? And now we're losing more bodies with Mobo and Walter. So, yeah, it's tough, man. Even Garrett Temple got a bad back, man. How did Garrett Temple get back spasms? That's someone's got to get to the bottom of that. What happened with Garrett, man? Was he on the couch too long watching the elections last night? Anyway, next one from Josh McDermott. Due to recent competitiveness and all draft picks available, do you see Masai possibly going for Giannis rather than the traditional tank route? If so, what would the trade look like? Okay, so first off, Josh, spicy question, because nobody's obviously thinking in this way. This is certainly, you're cutting in the other direction, right? The Raptors right now are building. They're trying to sort of figure out what they can do with this young group. Who do they have? But it's something where me and Alex are watching the game and we're looking at it. We're like, Raptors actually got a lot of guys right now, right? A lot of these young guys, and clearly some of them are overextended right now, but they're showing you real promise. They feel like real players, real guys. And all of a sudden, the Raptors, maybe coming into this year, you had like, 8, 9 rotation players, and like 4 of them are vets. All of a sudden now it feels like the Raptors may have like 10, 11 rotation players, and some of them are young. And so, yeah, you could potentially zag and go the other direction and try to go for it. First off, Giannis has a no trade clause, so he's going to determine, obviously, which teams he can go to. But that's not the hypothetical here. The hypothetical, obviously, is if he's available, and besides in this conversation, what would he offer? I just don't really see a situation where Milwaukee can get a trade done without walking away with Scotty. If they made a trade with any other package involving Giannis with Toronto, and they don't get Scotty, then this team, I mean, Milwaukee's front office has not done a good job in general, but like, it would really, really, I don't know how you would explain it to your fan base. Like, we've given up our best player, arguably in franchise history. It's between him or like Oscar Robertson or, Lou Alcindor, basically. Like, it's literally between those people in terms of how good Giannis has been. You don't walk away with Toronto's best asset, then why would you even make the trade in the first place? But again, I don't think the Raptors, honestly, I don't think the Raptors are in a good position to do that. I just don't think that, like, the young guys right now are at a win now level where you get Giannis, you're on the clock immediately. Because if he can't win a championship with you, why would he be happy here, right? And so the young guys clearly need more seasoning and more growth. This is an opportunity where 2-3 years down the line, maybe even 1 to 2 years down the line, where you see more growth from these guys, and all of a sudden you can sort of make a trade to sort of accelerate your timeline. I wouldn't put it past them. That's how the Raptors have done it in the past, right? But yeah, like, purely hypothetically, it'd be like Scotty plus Bruce Brown, but ideally, essentially Scotty for Giannis. I just don't think that the Raptors are in position to make that trade right now. But that's a good question, because it is very spicy to think about at a late hour like this. Okay, do we have more questions? Glenn Sama. Okay. Raptors have been close on the boards all year, but got pounded. Really needed that secondary rebounder and reliable shooting. It just seems like Scotty and IQ cure some of the major ailments. Agreed? Yeah, I think so. Like, these are very talented players, like, who would create a lot more solutions for you, right? Like IQ, for example. In a game like this where RJ gets all this defensive attention towards him, it would be nice to have a secondary creator. Davion actually played a really, really good game, but still, it just didn't really feel like the Kings really were that concerned. Even in the fourth quarter, when you saw there are plays where Davion drove into the lane and like was trying to use Jakob as a screener, and the Kings were just staying super deep in the paint. They're like, if you want to shoot jump hooks and floaters, like by all means go ahead, right? I think that like IQ obviously certainly brings a different dimension of that. Also, the 3-point shooting with IQ is something where the Raptors actually got a good 3-point volume up today, 34. But I think with IQ, he comes in and really sort of creates more of a 3-point shooting threat for you in general. Scotty, I think, would help a lot on the rebounding front. I think Scotty, especially now that other scorers are emerging for the Raptors, like RJ is emerging as this pick and roll playmaker. Grady's emerging as this off ball sort of playmaker in terms of where he's able to cut and curl and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden that I think puts Scotty in a better position, because despite all the sort of like grandeur and hope that we want to put on Scotty to be this like 1A superstar that like looks like Luka or looks like LeBron or looks like Giannis or whatever, I think his disposition is very much like he wants to be a connector and he wants to facilitate. And where you see Scotty be the best version of himself is when he can play off of other scorers, do a lot of the facilitating, set the pace, do the defending, do the rebounding, do a little bit of everything. That's what we've seen so far. Now, of course, barring another scoring jump, which to be honest, to start the season, we have not seen that kind of incidents from Scotty. Not to say he hasn't scored well. I just mean that like that kind of huge scoring jump in terms of the skill set. He probably wants to be that connector guy who can sort of like play around these players. And that's where like I would love to continue to see more of that. Right now, the connector and the hub, quote unquote, is Jakob. Jakob's the guy who screens to get them open. Another thing I would love to see the rest of the Raptors work on is just screening in general. Like you look at Sacramento, and the reason why their guards are so successful, not just because they're so skilled, everything is a screen or a dribble handoff with Sabonis. And Sabonis is like just crushing guys over and over and over, and like clipping them or like flattening them or like, trapping them or forcing switches. Those screens connect and they give momentum to the ball handlers to continue to create, right? Like, I think for the Raptors, you see a little bit of that you see some of that with Jakob for sure, but you don't see any of that with anybody else. And that's where the other stuff has to come into play. And yeah, I mean, I think that those other things can really, help be solved. I mean, in terms of rebounding, yeah, the Raptors are just kind of small across the board, especially right now. Even when healthy, I think they're kind of still small across the board. Not having a backup center, again, has really hurt with this team. Mobo's doing his best out there, but, I feel like he gets pushed around a little bit too. Chris, has not been able to sort of like be a dominant rebounder in a couple years now. He was never a dominant rebounder, but he can collect a lot of those and sort of crash in weak side. Maybe the Raptors do more of that with Chris. They ask him to crash the glass a little bit harder defensively and just make sure we secure possessions. But yeah, I mean, it's also tough, man. They're also playing these teams that are like, again, they got bigger centers and they also have more aggressive wing players. Like I thought like Keegan Murray quietly killed the Raptors with just how many rebounds he got and for second chances too. Like, wow, he's 7. That's not even quietly. He just loudly killed the Raptors with the offensive rebounds. Yeah, I mean, Alex, do we have any more? Clayton, again, how many visits to In-N-Out Burger Plan? I've been to In-N-Out a couple times. Like we were in Vegas, we went to In-N-Out. I was in California earlier this year. I actually went to San Francisco to see my family. And they're all like, "Oh, you got to go to In-N-Out. You got to go to In-N-Out. They got the the animal style fries, man. That stuff is mid. It's mid, bro. It's mid." So yeah, I don't anticipate we'll be doing that. Shouts to producer Alex and Jerome, who are literally walking out into the set now. Appreciate you guys for helping out so late into the night here. I think we each collectively got a combined 9 hours of sleep total last night. So between the election and also the super early flight this morning, we're all a little bit knackered. But we are not. Okay, we're going to ask to wrap it up. All right, that's it for the questions. Thanks, everyone, for bringing those in. Lastly, I obviously want to hand out the 3 stars and the other awards before I go. Your 3 stars from tonight's performance against the Sacramento Kings. First star, I'm going to give that to Davion Mitchell. Again, I just continue to think that he's played really well. There's clearly a real confidence between him and Sacramento in terms of sort of how he's been able to sort of like he was part of their program for the last couple of years. He seems like a pretty beloved player, but also I think he just did a really good job. Play faster, Davion. He's really becoming effective when he plays faster and sees out those opportunities in transition. 20 points, 6 assists for Davion Mitchell, shooting 8 of 11 from the field. Your second star, I'm going to give that to RJ. I thought he cooled off again because the Kings really blitzed him hard, but 23 points, 9 of 19 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3, 4 or 5 from the foul line. Well, they also got RJ shooting technical fouls, which, like, I mean, it always bothers me because I just want the technical free throw to go to the person with the highest free throw percentage. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the same way I would say like penalty kicks in soccer. Obviously, PKs in soccer is a way more important thing because there's much fewer goals as compared to points in a basketball game. But like, it should just go to whoever the best penalty taker is. Like Liverpool back in the day used to have James Milner take the penalty because guess what? That guy was like 100 out of 100 for penalties. Versus like they're obviously their best player was like, well, James was probably like their 10th best player during those runs. But yeah, I mean, just go with the highest free throw percentage shooter. And whatever. I'm not going to nitpick RJ for missing one free throw out of 5, but like I just, yeah, I mean, it was like last year. One time Jalen McDaniels took the technical free throw. Like, let's have a plan with the technical free throws. It's not hard. We should know exactly 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of the pecking order of like who should be shooting these. But RJ played really well overall. And again, it's going to be a real tricky task for him to adapt to how to play against these double teams, these triple teams, and still be effective. And that's why these games do matter, because these young players that we're invested in need to learn from these experiences. Your third stat, that to Chris Boucher, 17 points, 4 rebounds. I thought he just, again, carried a lot of the offense for the second unit. And yeah, we're going to need a lot more from Chris because the second unit just gets thinner and thinner by the day. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner for who torched the Raptors, that's got to go to Keegan Murray. Like I said, 7 offensive rebounds, 12 rebounds overall, 22 points. That's also where I thought RJ could have done a better job of rebounding because that was his assignment as well. But yeah, Murray was just killing them off the dribble too, like curling for threes. Like, yeah, it's Sacramento's tough. It's a tough team, man. They got a lot of creators. And then for your most important guy, I have to remind you that our most important guy is brought to you by Greta. Greta is on 590 King Street West. They're the number one hangout spot for pregame, during the game, post game, to watch Raptor game, to watch sports games. I mean, it's number one barcade in the city. The Raptors start getting blown out. All of a sudden, you can start getting some shots up, playing some Papa Shot, playing some Mario Kart, but just having a good time. And obviously, we have a live event coming up at Greta. I'm looking forward to all the people who have signed up. It's a sold-out event now. It's a free event, obviously, but I'm looking forward to when we return from LA the following day. We will be at Greta to watch the Raptors play against the Bucks. So I will see a lot of you guys there at that time. But your most important guy for a game like this, the most important guy was the cameraman on the Raptors broadcast who found Vivek Ranadive, the Kings owner, in the crowd, because Vivek Ranadive was wearing a black shirt that just said "They not like us," and I like, man, talk about the most corny way to kill something that is objectively like a huge viral sensation, is objectively like very funny, impactful, whatever you want to call it, like, you know what I mean, like a real moment. But the last thing you want to see is your corny dad wearing a black shirt with a Times New Roman font, "They not like us." Guess what? Vivek Ranadive, you not like them either. So yeah, whoever the cameraman on the Raptors broadcast that found him wearing that shirt, salute to you, because that was one of the corniest things I've ever seen in an NBA game. And that's saying a lot. And that's saying a lot for the guy who also said Stauskas. So anyway, that does it for the podcast. Thanks for listening. Just a reminder, I will actually not be going live in the next 2 games against the Lakers and the Clippers. And the reason for that is because I want to be able to actually participate in some of the post-game locker room stuff. Also, the Raptors will be playing quite late. We just feels like going live at a super late hour doesn't necessarily service the audience as much as like, going live obviously in earlier games. However, obviously there will still be reaction podcasts. So make sure you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and you will find the podcast episodes. We will just record them and upload them rather than going live directly. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get some of your questions in, but ultimately I think you guys can understand, and I'll hopefully bring you a bit of a closer perspective from the Clipper game, from the Laker game, and just get a chance to see, crypto, get a chance to see into a dome. I've actually never even been out to LA like that before, so it'd be kind of cool to, just even share some of those experiences. But like I said, there will be no lives going after those games, but when we come back, we will be going live as we have done all season. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway, and we are done.